add in that, but it sounded really boring. I sound like a really boring person. I walk my dogs. And I do. Good morning to Weinberg past pupils, to staff, to present pupils, and to invited guests. You know, I've come to the conclusion, and I've spent a little bit of time now geeing myself up for this speech, and I've done a lot of speeches in my past as chairperson of Western Province Schools and as head of sport at Springfield, and I mean, you've seen me up here in a few assemblies. But I was quite nervous about this particular speech, and so I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I came up with this amazing conclusion that was earth-shattering, this one universal truth, unquestionable, and that is that all great ideas and speeches have their origins in the shower. Take one or two every single day and you can solve the world's problems. And it has great acoustics in there as well, so you can... What is your waistband in the shower? But at one point over the past few weeks, in between some really interesting renditions of Manic Monday and Working 9 to 5, I came to the conclusion that yes, all of the great ideas for speeches and general ideas come to you in the shower. And it was then that I also began thinking about what I would talk about in my speech today. I'm certainly very boring, as you know now, so it took a lot of thinking. It was not something I'd given much thought to until Mrs. Harding sidled up to me in the staff room at Weinberg one day, a little while back, and asked me ever so sweetly to be the guest speaker. Upon reflection, I'm really honoured to have been asked to do this speech, because so many past pupils from this amazing school have achieved in so many areas of our society and done many a great thing to add to the value of the world. And I'm still completely astonished when I hear about the many incredible achievements of our past pupils, many of whom are recognized authors and poets, motivational speakers, playwrights, sculptors, and top sports stars. So I'm very proud to be standing up here today, especially as this year is my 20th school reunion for my matric class of 93. Sure, I left school 20 years ago. It doesn't feel like it. But the next thing to strike me in the shower, which wasn't something falling down, as I was in mid-chorus of Dolly Parton's Working 9 to 5. Technically, I have never left school. Let me explain, and please excuse me if I get distracted along the way, but I've never been one for having a very good attention span. I began my schooling at Weinberg Girls Junior School in 1983. Yeah, a long time ago. When 80s music really was 80s music. You're only stealing it now. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the junior school. And I played my netball and tennis, and no sight of hockey there. And I generally just made a nuisance of myself. In 1989, I started at this high school, and in standard 6 or grade 8, I took up hockey. And that was all thanks to a teacher who I admired because she was super cool. And she was good at sport, and she was fun, and she convinced me that being a hockey goalkeeper was just like playing soccer. She lied a little. Because you had to wear really funny stuff. And it really wasn't that much like playing soccer. And girls hit the ball really hard at you. But thanks to Mrs. Lynn Martin, who's still here at Weinberg today, for introducing me to the school. Thank you to Mrs. Martin for introducing me to the sport that would become the focal point of my world, and still, as you've heard from Mrs. Harding, really is. By standard 7, I had joined the ranks of 7E in the days when we were slipstreamed. It was a notorious class, who were eventually going to be taken into hand by probably the scariest teacher I've ever known. Her name was Mrs. Webb. I spent most of that year keeping her company in detention. And She never really knew my name but called me Simpson. I didn't argue. But I did learn a very valuable quote from her. Granted, at the time we were forced to memorize it off by heart and recite it daily during roll call as a class. But it was something that's kind of stuck with me today, possibly because I've had to remember it and it's just stuck over and over in the years. But it is pretty inspirational when you break it down. It is a quote from Stephen Grant. I shall pass through this world but once. Any good thing, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being. See how I'm not reading it? Let me do it now. Let me not defer it, nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I didn't really understand what it meant at the time, and nor did I particularly care. But I guess that is the great thing about getting older. Stuff suddenly makes sense, usually when you're in the shower. It has become a little guideline for the way I live my life now. I don't always get it right, but I know at least that I'm trying. The same concept about passing through the world but once, and if you translate it into the modern translation, is YOLO. So with YOLO in the back of my mind, this was one of the deciding factors for my return to Wynberg Girls after 15 years at Springfield Convent Senior School. It was the opportunity to put myself into a new environment, to push myself out of my comfort zone, and challenge my own reality. Because we only really get one shot at life. I loved my time at Springfield. Granted, again, at the start of a new schooling career, I had a little bit of a rocky start. This time as a 22-year-old. And I got into trouble with the headmistress at the time because I decided that it would be a good idea to wind her chair down as a practical joke. I don't know why. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Maybe it was a little rush to the head. It was probably the same rush of blood to the head that I got from at junior school. I thought that throwing one of those little Tom Thumb crackers at one of my favourite junior school teachers would be a good hoot. Or that wrapping a piece of toilet paper around the tree in the quad would get a load of laughs. None of that ended very well. But things got a great deal better as I got older, and I grew up at Springfield. Funny that. I had my education here. I met a lot of friends here. I learned a great deal of things here. But at Springfield, I grew up. And I learned about the world, and I learned a lot about myself. And I accomplished some incredible things there that I never thought possible. With the help of great coaches, supportive parents, and amazing girls just like you. We accomplished a lot. When I arrived, Springfield was not the sportiest school around, but by the time I left, and I think a lot of you can attest to that now when you do play against Springfield, they had won almost all the inter-schools events in all their sports. They had the highest levels of participation in sport, and they were considered, and they are considered, a fearful opposition all around the country. That's pretty awesome stuff, and certainly it was such a wonderful privilege to have been a part of that family and a part of that process. But during my time at Springfield, and don't tell them, I always kept my eye and my heart on my alma mater. It was pretty easy considering I worked just across the road, and we always had lots to do with each other or against each other on the sporting front. I watched with a very quiet pride as Wynberg girls excelled on the sports fields and in the academics and in the cultural world. I was green with envy as the Wynberg campus put down their first AstroTurf, the first in the southern suburbs. And I contributed jealously to the new aquatic centre when you turned the swimming pool into the water polo pool. I even contributed, I put a brick there. One day, while preparing for a speech for one of the Springfield Sports Awards in the shower, I finally understood the meaning of our school motto, honour before honours. Okay, I always understood it. Please, I hope I didn't go through 5 years of education in the high school and not understood honour before honours. But it never meant a great deal to me in the grand scheme of things when I was a pupil. But having experienced life in an ever-changing world, where there's so much emphasis placed on awards and recognition of achievements and winning, the motto, honour before honours, finally rang true. To participate with honour is a great deal more important than the honours you would receive. So that was the main theme of my speech that year, and it continued to be the thread in all my sports speeches throughout the 15 years that followed. And here I am today, back at school, back at my old school. I'm often asked why I decided to come back. Why did I decide to leave Springfield? And my answer is pretty simple. It was a case of moving on to the next adventure, rather than leaving behind a haven of safety. If there was any other school that I would have liked to have worked at, it would definitely be Wynberg. This school is brimming with potential. It is filled with incredible girls, dedicated staff, forward-thinking school governing body and management teams, and awesome facilities. There is always something happening here, and it is such a vibe. It's such an awesome and exciting new adventure to experience, besides which it is my old school, and I loved my time here. And what was it like on my first day back? As not one of you, but as one of them. It was nerve-wracking, it was exciting, it was scary, yes. But it was the feeling of being somewhere familiar, but also somewhere new. So many buildings have remained the same, and I was pretty chuffed that I remembered our school song as I stood up in front of the opening assembly, to the amusement and surprise of some of my hockey girls who've known me from a way back. I put them in their place quickly. There's something awe-inspiring about the Wellington Quad as well, with that sacred grass and the sundial, and of course my toilet paper tree sitting in the background. Lots of memories come back when I walk around the school grounds. The basement lockers, yes, they were here. They remind me of how we used to skateboard in and out the lockers, illegally of course. No one knew we had skateboards there. The library reminds me of how much my mom got involved in my school life because she did library duty there every week. And those were the days I could get some tuck shop money. My new sports office, some of you know as the sports shop as well, and the sports office, was actually the prefect's room back in the day. And we used to meet there to discuss duties and hang out together at break times and angst about who had to do the matric balcony duty during the assembly. Nobody wanted to police your own room. Yes, this school proved that anything was possible. Because in 1993, in my matric year, I was elected as a prefect. I think it was one of those things where I was elected so that you could take the bad one and make her do good stuff. But it worked, and I was also voted in as head of Copenhagen, and boy did we do well. There were many people who were surprised at this turn of events, my parents especially. They thought I was playing a joke on them when I told them that the principal had phoned me to tell me I was a prefect. In all honesty, I think this was because I was just a pain in high school. I was always playing the fool, trying to make my classmates laugh, and generally in the process disrupting class time. The infamous Mrs. Webb, who I referred to earlier, once caught my friend and I as we were chuckling raucously in the parking lot after sticking jelly tots to a teacher's side mirror. Again, why? I don't know. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. And as she looked at us, she was a larger-than-life woman with dark hair and very scary features. And as she looked at us with disdain, and we kind of cowered into a corner, she uttered, "You know, empty vessels make the most noise." And my friend Seth and I looked at each other and we were like, And as she strolled off, she said, "Just remember, this is a school for young ladies, not for yahoos." The moment was not lost on us, and we leapt about shouting, Yahoo! As she walked off, that Yahoo became the battle cry for anything after that, particularly as she disappeared around corners. So yes, I was definitely a challenge, and there are a few teachers around who wow. There were a few teachers around who can attest to my bad behavior and who put up with a lot of things, and I couldn't name them, but I thought I wouldn't do that. Because they're still here, and I'm now working with them, which is wonderful. But I get the opportunity to apologize for my behavior back then. And Mrs. Harding, well, we have a good story about how I proudly promised her at the invincible age of 17 that one day I would be back teaching here at Wynberg. She smiled kindly and nodded. You know that smile? And I heard that her actual response was, quote, over my dead body. And yet here I am today, and Mrs. Harding is alive. And the principal. And I'm the guest speaker at Father's Day. And she asked me. Every day I get to wear my Wynberg tracksuit again. Thank goodness it's so much better than the one that we had. And every day I get to learn something new, and I get the opportunity to do something differently. And I also understand the meaning of being an empty vessel. And I try very hard not to make too much noise. I fear I might still be a Yahoo, but I'm working on it. I'm very grateful my life journey has brought me full circle back to Wynberg. Although the truth is I was never that far away from the school. But I come from a proud line of Wynberg past pupils. My mom and her sisters are all Wynberg old girls. My dad, my brother, cousins and uncles are all Wynberg old boys. Yeah, we caught a lot of buses together. The school has developed in many fantastic ways, and the uniform has most certainly changed for the better. But the principles and traditional values of Wynberg girls remains the same. And I hope that with this return to Wynberg, I can make a far better contribution than I did before. I still enjoy the school as much as I did when I was a pupil. Thank you for listening to me reminisce and waffle on. Girls, and I'm sad the grade 8s aren't here, some of them are, do not try any of these stunts mentioned in my previous speech. And do not think that because I misbehave that somehow I could excuse and oblige your behavior that might be bad in my class. Do not push the boundaries. I would like to leave you with a few points. Things that I've learned. 1, it is never too late to reinvent yourself. Look at me, from the naughty kid to the teacher of naughty kids. 2, never allow yourself to settle for being okay or just average. You have awesome potential, and at this school, you have every means necessary provided to you to achieve awesomeness. It all comes down to you and what you are prepared to do to be awesome. I have a really good saying to go with that. It says, when I feel sad, I just be awesome. True story. Be a part of your school. That's number 3. Do a sport. Be a member of a committee. Join the choir. Play chess. Do something. Get involved in something. You'll meet new people, and you'll push your own boundaries and learn something new about yourself that you never knew. 4, aim to leave a legacy. Not of infamy, like some of us, but of some form of excellence. Be the best supporter. Be loved by your teammates because you care for each other and you care for them and they know it. Win the general knowledge quiz. Leave something of your soul in the school so that by the time you leave and when the time you visit again, you'll always feel that part of your soul in the school. And that when others follow, there'll always be a part of you that remains. 5, and finally, my last shower revelation of the morning. People often say that life is short, but in my opinion, it is the longest thing you will ever experience. So my plan is to try to do something good for someone else every day. To try to do something different every day, even if it's the way I approach a problem, or person, or situation. And to try to do something to make myself happy every day. Because I want to laugh out more loud. I want to laugh out loud more often. And finally, to keep doing stuff that scares me, which is why I agreed to speak today. I hope that I've not bored you, and I hope that you, if you have children, or if you, none of you, I had planned on having some of my own age group here, so that was for them. When you plan to have children in the future, that you plan to send them to this school, your alma mater. Because in my opinion, this school is the place to be. Thank you.